There are a lot of different types of scenes in movies and TV shows, and some of the scenes look very complex when you view them already edited, and some of the scenes are actually complex to shoot as well. There are, however, a couple of easy ways to film a scene that will not only help you during filming, but also in the post-production. Today I will cover two methods of filming a scene with their benefits and drawbacks. To illustrate what the two different methods are, I will be using Unreal Engine. This way you can see what the camera sees as well as behind the scenes. Let's get to it. Before I start covering the first method, I want you to have a specific mindset when it comes to filming a scene. What are we actually doing when we film a scene? We are showing our audience an event that is taking place, and that event can be anything, a car chase, a fight, or something as simple as a dialogue between two people. Now, no matter what that event is, what we need to do in our head is to envision that event from beginning to end from a spectator's point of view, as if we are reading about it in a book. So if it's a dialogue between two people in a living room, I would see two people sitting on a couch, talking to one another and reacting to what the other person is saying. You observe it as a spectator first to understand everything that's being said and done, and then you decide for yourself what would be the best perspective to capture every action and line of dialogue. And this is how you break down a scene. So for example, let's say at one point the conversation gets heated and one of the people gets angry. At this point you need to ask yourself, where would I need to be as a spectator to see and feel that anger in the best possible way? This is where you place your camera, and then you will decide whether or not you will use any camera movement. So you start out as a spectator and then you get in the middle of it. This is basically how all scenes are constructed. This is the most used method to shoot a dialogue scene. It is often called the master scene method. It will also work for non-dialogue scenes, however a dialogue scene will be easier to illustrate. So let's use the following scene as an example. A man walks into a room and starts a conversation with his girlfriend. At some point in the conversation, he reveals that he is in love with another girl. His girlfriend, obviously heartbroken by the news, decides to leave the room. So with this method we are starting with the master shot. The master shot covers the entire scene from beginning to end. It is often the widest shot in the scene. It is important that it covers all the key action and dialogue in the scene. It is important because it will act as a safety take that we can always fall back on during editing. So he walks in, they are having a conversation, he tells her he's in love with someone else, and she leaves. After we're done, we move to a tighter shot. Now what type of shot exactly depends on the scene and how wide your master shot was. In our case I would say a medium 2 shot would be a good place to start. So once again we'll film the scene from beginning to end, but this time as a medium 2 shot. We repeat this process for the over the shoulders, the clean singles and the close-ups. After that we can do some inserts, cutaways and some other creative shots. And what do I mean by creative shots? For example, after he tells her he's in love with someone else, we can do a push-in to emphasize her reaction. In this example, it would be powerful to do a push-in from an over-the-shoulder right after he tells her. So we put attention on her reaction as well as showing how the other character leaves her single in the frame, literally and figuratively. After we shot the scene from all the angles that we wanted, we now have complete freedom in the editing. The editor has the entire scene from a variety of angles, as well as some inserts, cutaways and creative shots. It is almost as if the scene was shot with multiple cameras at the same time. The editor now only has to choose what he wants to show at each specific moment in the scene. When doing this method, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. In most cases, the master shot should be the first shot to be filmed, because it is often the widest shot in the scene. And the wider the shot, the harder it is to light, because the more the camera sees, the less room we have to place our lights without them being in the frame. If you can light the widest shot, you can light all the other shots much easier. We can always get closer to a subject by moving the camera closer or using a tighter lens. We can't, however, always get further away because we already might be against the wall, and by using a wider lens, we might see the light stands in the frame. Another reason for filming the master shot first is because it gives actors time to get used to the scene. Because the shot is so wide, we are not focusing on their facial expressions, so they don't have to have their best performance from the get-go. This, however, can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. If you go from wide to close, that means that the close-ups will be left to the very end. At this point, the actors might already be tired, which will impact their performance, so keep that in mind when deciding the filming order. Going with the master shot first is also a way to guarantee that you end up with a full scene even if you run out of time to do all the coverage. A master shot covers the entire scene from beginning to end, so it can always fill in the gaps in the editing. This method requires a lot more pre-planning and understanding of the scene beforehand. Let's use the same scene as earlier. We will still be starting with the widest shot, however this time we will not be filming the entire scene but only the parts that we need for the edit. This means I need to know beforehand how I'm going to edit the scene. In this example, I would say that him walking in and her leaving are the only two moments in the scene that are going to be shown in a wide shot. Then we move closer into a medium 2 shot and we do the same thing. We pick the moments that are going to be shown as a medium 2 shot and we film them. And then we do this for all the other angles. Now there's one important thing to note when doing this method. You need overlap while filming. So what does that mean? For example, we know we want a close-up of him when he tells his girlfriend that he loves another girl. It is important that we don't only film the moment he says the words, but also a couple of moments before that and a couple of moments after it. This way we have some wiggle room in the editing to make the transition seamless. The biggest pro of the first method is definitely how low risk it is. You film the entire scene multiple times from multiple angles, so you have all the creative freedom in the editing. You don't need to know how the final edit will look like beforehand. Another pro is the fact that the actors get to act out the entire scene multiple times from beginning to end. This gives them a lot of takes to practice the scene and nail the important moments in their performance. The biggest con of this method is the amount of time it takes. You will be shooting the entire scene from multiple angles multiple times, and if it's a long scene, that can add up really quickly. The second method, however, is the complete opposite. The biggest pro of it is of course that it takes a lot less time. You won't be shooting the entire scene from all the different angles, you will just shoot what you need for the edit. Another huge advantage of this method is the creativity and the film language. You will be forced to understand the scene better, which will result in better storytelling and understanding of the visual language in general. The biggest con of this method is the risk you take. You will have very limited options in the editing, and the editor will have to know exactly how you envision the scene while you are filming it. It also requires a lot more experience and skill, especially during the pre-production stage. Not many filmmakers like doing pre-production as much as they like filming or editing. Many people can create beautiful looking images that don't progress the story whatsoever. Only a few can make the shots look beautiful as well as appropriate for the story. Both methods have pros and cons. It also depends on the type of scene you're filming. Some scenes don't give you the luxury to do multiple takes. An explosion or destruction, for example, can most likely be only done once. I would say it would be best to use a combination of both methods. Let me tell you exactly how to do it. First, you plan out every shot for every moment in the scene. You ask yourself, what would be the best way to show that moment and why? Start like you would with the first method. Do a master shot covering the entire scene from beginning to end. After that, you switch to the second method. Cover all the moments from different angles you planned out beforehand. If you follow this workflow, you will always have a master shot to fall back on during editing, as well as pre-planned angles of every moment in the scene, so best of both worlds. I hope you learned something new today. Till next time.